Welcome to my crap guide of using the Charge Blade on PC with keyboard and mouse controls. Apologies in advance for the poor quality mic. I don't have my recording microphone here with me at my workstation, but let's get to it. We'll focus on the true bread and butter combo of the Charge Blade. The game really doesn't explain how to do those combos or even how to get there, to put it gently. And if you're a newcomer to Monster Hunter and the Charge Blade, you might have the impression that all you really need to do is just fill your vials and go into axe mode and swing around with the axe mode. Now you can do that, but you're not being nearly as effective as you can be. The true bread and butter combo of the Charge Blade is the Elemental Discharge and the Super Elemental Discharge. Well, how do we get to doing Elemental Discharges and Super Elemental Discharges? We need to go through a number of combos, or rather steps, to prep for that attack. I say we have to prepare for that attack, but it doesn't mean you're not actually fighting the enemy like an insect glaive where you just shoot out the insect and wait for buffs. It's not like that. You'll constantly be up the enemy's tail, or the monster's tail, or face, or what have you, and once you get the hang of it, this will just become a natural habit. So the first thing we need to do is fill our files, transfer it to the shield, and then fill our files again to do an elemental discharge. So we'll fill our files first. Now to fill effectively, you actually have to release your heavy attack when the sword sort of just sparks with the shield. You'll hear the noise, it's pretty distinct, but you should let go of right click when you hear it. So I'll try to time my voice right to this. So we'll charge, release. I'll do that again quietly so you can hear the sound of when I release. Now you might notice that your sword's red, and if you've been playing the Charge Blade, you'll notice that your attacks will start bouncing. So you need to fill your files with guard right click. So for me, and vanilla PC control binds, that's control right. Alright, so we've filled our files. How do we transfer it to the shield? We have to do an animation cancel, which is we press left and right click simultaneously 3 times to do 3 attacks, and then we press guard, in this case guard is control, to do an animation cancel. So it goes like this, guard. And now you'll have noticed that the files have transferred to the shield. Top left corner, your shield indicator is now glowing a pinkish hue. So your shield is charged. The nice thing about having your shield charged is when you guard, that's not guarding. When your shield is charged and you guard, the monster that's hitting you will actually take a little bit of file damage. So that's a neat little trick. You might even do some impact if you have an impact type of Charge Blade, but that's not really the focus of this video, just fun fact. So let's get into the elemental discharge now that we have our shield filled. To do an elemental discharge, we need at least 1 file filled, but in this case I'll fill all 6 of mine. For the key knight, you might have noticed I have 6 files instead of 5. You can get 6 files by equipping the capacity charm, so that's the amulet, or by finding a capacity decoration, which you'll probably have to grind quite a lot for endgame. Anyway, enough about that. Let's do our elemental discharge, which is the big dick swing attack of the Charge Blade and its true potential. So to do this, we'll just do what we did to charge the shield, except we won't cancel the animation. So it'll be 3 consecutive left right clicks. And that's the regular elemental discharge. There is a super elemental discharge. We'll get to that later, but I want to talk about the discharge you just saw first. So your first axe swing does quite a significant amount of damage. I'm doing 263 right now with the rare 7 Nergigante Charge Blade, and you probably saw some bolts come down. But not all of them hit the tree stump because the tree stump's hitbox is quite small. When you're fighting a monster like a Baroth, a Rathalos, an Elder Dragon like Nergigante, their bodies are quite large, So if you're lining up against their tail or their head or even their side and they have wings, it's going to travel across the entirety of the body, really. So about this distance, your axe will come down here, you'll have a bolt 1 or 2 over here, and the remaining bolts will just spread out like so. Alright, so let's get to filling our sword with files, because you need to have your sword and your shield charged with files to actually do what's called a super elemental discharge, which procs a number of additional bolts, hence more damage. So let's charge our shield again. Shield is charged. Now we'll charge the sword. Now here's a neat trick to charging the sword. You don't actually need to fill your files. See how they're glowing red or orange at the top left? I'm a little colorblind, I guess. You don't need to fill the files first. You can just go right to filling your sword with those files. Now, to charge your sword, you go into your regular charge file animation, but you'll cancel it and come out with a heavy attack that does quite a decent amount of damage. So a regular charge will be control right to fill the files, and we'll hold left click, and then we'll release the left click once the sword locks into the shield. You'll see what I mean. So charge, left click, hold, release, and now your sword is charged. And from here you can do super elemental discharge, which brings down significantly higher number of bolts. I'm not sure if it's 2 times the number of bolts. I have never bothered to count, but it's quite a bit. So let's take a look at that. Simultaneous left right clicks. 1, 2, 3. And that's the super amp. It's hard to demonstrate with this free stun because its hitbox is so small, but I guarantee you against an actual monster, you get a good hit on it, you'll see a huge number of bolt procs going off. Now you can traditionally fill your sword like you would with shield, which is, you fill your files first, and then from here you would go the other way I showed the first time, which was when the files were empty but they were glowing orange. That's really just a shortcut. Do what is appropriate in the situation. But it'll be up to you to time that right. Once you get into the habit of doing these things, you'll pretty much be attacking the monster constantly without really thinking about it. Now there's a shortcut to actually get into elemental discharge, because you might have noticed there's quite a bit of prep work to do. I mean, you're attacking the whole time, but there is quite a bit of prep work to get into a discharge. There's a shortcut to do it. Well, it takes about the same time, but what this lets you do is you'll get to sheathe your weapon and reposition for a better hit, so I do like doing this more. Alright, so let's build our files back up because I've just run out of charge. Those are not the combos. And guard, fill the shield. Another thing I want to talk about is the indicators for the file. It's either yellow or orange red. Yellow's going to fill 3 for me, red's going to fill all 6. As long as you have files, you can discharge, even if it's just 1. So, but the more files you have, the more bolts you'll bring down. So this is what I was talking about earlier, which was to just fill with the files glowing instead of actually filling the files first. Now, if you've done that, you can do that again actually, it doesn't really matter. It's just a shortcut, so you can keep filling it as long as you have files, and filling your sword while you have files doesn't consume it. So that's actually a decent attack to get off. Alright, so let's go into the shortcut for super elemental discharge. We want to come out in our axe mode to do this. So you'll have to stow away your weapon first, and then we come out with by moving towards the monster, hitting guard, and then left right into super discharge. And that's really the bread and butter combo of this charge blade. Another nice thing to keep note of is your axe mode files and how they are consumed, as well as another discharge combo right from it. So pay attention to this one. You'll see that when you come out in axe mode, and you probably already know this if you've tried charge blade at all, your left click doesn't consume any files, and your heavy attack with the right click consumes one file per swing, except if you follow that up with a second swing, you swing twice, but you only consume one file. So take a look. 1, 2 swings, but only one file used. Now I still have some files left over, so I can actually do that combo again and go right into elemental discharge. It won't be a super elemental discharge. Even if I had the sword charge right now, I don't really consider any discharges super unless you meet all the conditions of your sword is charged, your shield is charged, and you have maximum files. It's just a nitpicky detail, but that's what it is. And another thing, to get out of axe mode, so you're mobile again and can guard, just press guard again. So come out, guard, come out with the swing, and then you can go back to being more mobile. So I'm going to charge the shield, cancel, shield is charged. Left click, release left click, sword is charged. Stow away, reposition to the head, tail, whatever fits you need. Come out, do a swing. If you just keep pressing left click, you do that nice double discharge. That's really the most important things you need to know about sword and shield. There's some little tricks involving guarding as well. Like you'll notice that the shield is has a reddish hue. My sword has lightning and cross going. Lightning, whatever. You see it, I think. Let's just charge all of this to be completely thorough. Might have already noticed this, but the nice thing about charging your sword, even if you don't see an opportunity to do elemental discharges, is any regular swings. There's a little box. Those don't consume any files. And damage might seem small, you know, I'm only doing 5 damage, but that builds up over time. And in the span of fighting something for 10, 20, some instances 30 minutes, that's gonna add up. Now, what was I talking about? The guarding. So, regular guarding, when your shield is charged, it'll actually, I can't show it here, but when some monster attacks you, it'll actually hit back with a little bit of charge, a little bit of file damage, like I was showing you with the charged sword. Now, if you want to be fancy about it, which is to do damage and block at the same time, and also inflict a chance of a knockdown, a stun, whatever, just exhaust damage, all these 3 conditions. Now let's see if I can remember correctly. There's certain animations, we call it guard pointing, where your shield comes out, and during those frames you're actually guarding even though you're attacking. So for instance, for this attack, I'm bouncing, whatever. 1, 2, 3. When we cancel, see how the shield came out? You're guarding at the very end of that. So if you were to get hit by something right at that moment, you'd still be guarding. And whatever's hitting you would take damage. Now if I can remember how to get into shield. No, that's not it. So when you're in sword and shield mode, this is the easier guard point animation, which is when you go from sword and shield to axe without having to stow away your weapons. If you press guard and left click, as that shield came out, there were animations. There were not invincible, but guard frames. And it will do the guard point damage, it'll do the block, chance for stunning, and so on. Well, hopefully this has been useful for your adventures in Monster Hunter with keyboard and mouse controls. Good luck!